Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Hemkor Saroya.
And I'm Diksha Bisla. And on the show today, US Vice President J.D. Vance said that Washington hopes that Islamabad will cooperate with India to hunt down Pakistan-based terrorists following the pahalgam terror attack. Of course, we're going to get you all the latest on that front.
Also on the show, US President Donald Trump has ousted his national security advisor Mike Waltz and has named Secretary of State Marco Rubio as his interim replacement. We'll get you all the details on this on the show as well.
And we hope, frankly, that Pakistan, to the extent that they're responsible, cooperates with India.
US Vice President J.D. Vance says Washington hopes that Pakistan would cooperate with India to hunt down Pakistan-based terrorists, and says he also hopes that India's response to the recent terror attack in Kashmir does not lead to a broader regional conflict.
Iran says the fourth round of talks between the United States and Iran, due to take place in Rome on Saturday, has been postponed, and a new date will be set depending on the US approach. This, as Trump says, all purchases of Iranian oil or petrochemical products must stop.
Trump sacks Waltz as National Security Advisor and nominates him for a UN post. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been temporarily placed to replace him.
Signaling a softening of Beijing's stance in the tit-for-tat tariff war, China says it is assessing whether to start trade negotiations with the United States.
Said 24. He said, yeah, 24, only 24. So 24 out of the 59 are living, and they knew because they had just gotten out.
US President Donald Trump speaks to parents of US Israeli hostage at White House event, says fewer than 24 hostages are alive.
Strong winds and a dust storm followed by heavy rain hit Delhi and the national capital region. Flight operations were severely impacted.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang flags concerns about Huawei's growing AI chip capabilities in a closed-door meeting with US lawmakers. He warns that US export restrictions on NVIDIA chips could unintentionally boost global demand for Huawei's alternatives.
Mumbai Indians beat Rajasthan Royals by 100 runs to knock them out of playoff contention in the IPL. The five-time champions are now top of the table. Now we're starting with news alert that's just coming in. Pakistan Army post resorted to small arms firing from posts across the line of control opposite Kupwara, Baramulla, Poonch, Nowshera and Akhnur areas of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, this is the 8th consecutive night of Pakistan provoking India along the line of control after the pahalgam attack. Indian Army troops responded in a calibrated and proportionate manner.
Now, for the latest on this, WION special correspondent Idris Lone is now joining us live on the phone line. Idris, thank you so much for joining us. This is the 8th consecutive night of provocations by Pakistan. What's the latest on this, Idris? What can you tell us?
Well, absolutely. From the last 8 nights, Pakistan Army has been resorting to unprovoked small arms fire from the post along the line of control, as well as we've seen on the international border. This last night, they also broke the ceasefire in Kupwara, Baramulla, Poonch, Naushera and Aknoor sectors. Let me tell you that the DGMOs of India and Pakistan had spoken over the hotline on Wednesday to discuss the continuous unprovoked violations by Pakistan. But despite that conversation, the ceasefire violations across the line of control and international border are continuing. The Indian DGMO reportedly had warned his Pakistani counterpart in that conversation against the violations, but it seems nothing has changed on the ground. We've seen from the last 8 days, there have been some infiltration attempts as well from across the border. One of the infiltration attempts was foiled by security forces, wherein 2 terrorists were killed and arms and ammunition was recovered from their operation site. It could be a cover to the terrorist groups to cross over into the Kashmir territory, and it is also basically engaging the Indian Army at various posts at the line of control and international border, because Pakistan basically is at the moment tense. They don't know how India is going to respond to the pahalgam attack. That is one of the reasons that they're on their toes.
Absolutely, Idris. Of course, there's panic in Pakistan. This is the 8th consecutive night of provocations from Pakistan as well. But just for our viewers and better understanding here, could you also get us up to speed with all the operations that are underway in various sectors in Jammu and Kashmir?
Well, there are 4 major operations that are taking place in South Kashmir, in Pahalgam, basically in Anantnag district at 4 places. We've seen the first operation that started in the Baisaran and adjacent jungles is still being carried out. We've seen that there was one place where basically security forces came in very close contact with the terrorists. There was a brief gunfire also, which was heard from the operation site. But so far, they've not managed to nab the attackers of the Pahalgam attack in that area. But we believe from our sources that those terrorists are still hiding in the area. We've also heard from the investigative agencies that there were 4 terrorists in total. 3 of them carried out the carnage, while 1 of them was outside the fence where he was giving a cover, basically keeping an eye where the security forces will reach and keep an eye on them as well. So what we have also heard that there were around a dozen, 12 to 15 over-the-ground workers who were in constant touch with those terrorists. These terrorists also had done a recce of other tourist spots in the month of March. They've gone to Gulmarg, which is very close to the line of control, but due to the high security, they could not carry out the attack in Gulmarg. Then they went to Pahalgam, and also there, we believe they've done a recce of 3 places. It was Betab Valley, Adu Valley, and Baisaran, because Betab Valley and Adu Valley has security presence. That was one of the reasons that they did not carry out the attack there.
Right.
So they carried out the attack in Baisaran, where they could easily flee into the jungles. But security forces are carrying out massive combing operations in the jungles, along with the commandos and with the help of drones and helicopters. So it seems they're very inching closer, basically, to the terrorist group, and we'll have to wait and watch about that.
Absolutely, Idris. We'll have to wait and watch how the situation unfolds going forward. Thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this for now.
And US Vice President J.D. Vance has said that Washington hopes that Islamabad will cooperate with India to hunt down Pakistan-based terrorists.
He also said that he hopes that India's response to the terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir does not lead to a broader regional conflict. Listen to this.
I'm worried about any time you see a hotspot breaking out, especially between two nuclear powers. We've obviously been in close contact with our friends in India and Pakistan. Our hope here is that India responds to this terrorist attack in a way that doesn't lead to a broader regional conflict. And we hope, frankly, that Pakistan, to the extent that they're responsible, cooperates with India to make sure that the terrorists, sometimes operating in their territory, are hunted down and dealt with.
Vance made his remarks on the attack in an interview with Fox News amid rising tensions between India and Pakistan. In the aftermath of the pahalgam attack, US Vice President and his family was in India on a 4-day visit when Pakistani terrorists carried out the attack in Baisaran Valley, killing 26 civilians.
Hours before Vance's statement, the US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth called his Indian counterpart Rajnath Singh and sent out a strong message of solidarity over the Pahalgam terror attack.
He said Washington supports India's rights to defend itself and reiterated full US government support in India's fight against terrorism.
Rajnath Singh told the US Defense Secretary that Pakistan has a history of supporting, training and funding terrorist groups, and it has been exposed as a rogue state, fueling global terrorism and destabilizing the region.
He also said that it is important for the global community to unequivocally condemn and call out such heinous acts of terrorism.
Then India's Union Home Minister Amit Shah, in his first public remarks on the Pahalgam terror attack, vowed revenge and warned that those responsible for the deadly attack would not be spared and every single terrorist will be tracked and punished.
और अगर कोई एक कायराना हमला कर ये समझता है कि हमारी बड़ी जीत है, तो एक बात मन से समझ लीजिए, ये नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार है, किसी को बख्शा नहीं जाएगा, किसी को बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। इस देश की इंच इंच भूमि पर से आतंकवाद को मूल समेत उखाड़ने का हमारा संकल्प है और वो सिद्ध होकर रहे।
Meanwhile, Pakistan is in panic and its civilian and military leaders are scrambling as fears of Indian military action grow louder by the hour. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif rushed to meet President Asif Ali Zardari to discuss the spiraling security situation. The two leaders spoke of unity, sovereignty and resolve, but the undertone was one of panic.
Now on Thursday, Pakistan's Army Chief General Syed Asim Munir visited the field firing ranges to observe military exercises. Islamabad's official statements may speak of a befitting response, but the high-level huddles and drills betray the deep unease within Rawalpindi and Islamabad.
Furthermore, the Atari-Wagah border crossing point between India and Pakistan has been shut completely following a week-long heavy rush of people from either side to cross over after Indian government ordered all Pakistani citizens with short-term visa to leave the country in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack.
And US President Donald Trump has ousted his national security advisor Mike Waltz and named Secretary of State Marco Rubio as his interim replacement.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote that he would be nominating Waltz to be the next US ambassador to the United Nations. Waltz had faced intense criticism for accidentally adding a journalist to a Signal chat group which detailed American strikes on the Houthis in Yemen.
US Vice President J.D. Vance defended Trump's move and refused to call it an ouster. In an interview to Fox News, Vance said that Trump's decision to move Waltz to the UN was in fact a promotion and a recognition for the work done by Waltz at the UN Security Council.
I like Mike. I think he's a great guy. He's got the trust of both me and the president. But we also thought that he'd make a better UN ambassador as we get beyond this stage of the reforms that we've made to the National Security Council. You saw the president announce that Marco Rubio is going to step in as interim leader of the National Security Council. So I think the media wants to frame this as a firing. Donald Trump has fired a lot of people. He doesn't give them Senate-confirmed appointments afterwards. What he thinks is that Mike Waltz is going to better serve the administration, most importantly, the American people in that role, and I happen to agree with him.
The decision to oust Mike Waltz marks the first major shakeup of Trump's inner circle since he began his second term in January.
In March, Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, had revealed that he was added to a Signal group chat where senior Trump administration members, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, were discussing plans to strike Houthi militants in Yemen.
And for more, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
President Trump has announced a major shakeup in his national security team. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will now serve as acting national security advisor, replacing Mike Waltz, who has been tapped as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. The move follows revelations that Waltz had added a journalist to a private Signal chat discussing military plans, prompting backlash. Waltz and his deputy Alice Wong are both leaving the White House, and Waltz possibly heading to the UN. Trump made the announcement on Thursday afternoon, emphasizing continuity amid shifting roles in his foreign policy team. Now, you may remember that Mike Waltz was one of the high-ranking U.S. officials who was expected to travel alongside J.D. Vance and his delegation to India a while back. Waltz did not join that team. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
All right, and moving on, even as Ukraine and US have signed an economic partnership deal, there is no clarity yet on a ceasefire agreement.
And Russian attacks have continued to target Ukrainian cities. A Russian drone attack set buildings ablaze in Zaporizhia, injuring 14 people.
Ukrainian officials said that Russian forces had made at least 10 strikes on the city, targeting private homes, high-rise apartment buildings, educational institutions and infrastructure sites. Pictures showed a building ablaze and rescue teams making their way through rubble.
Russian drones also attacked Ukraine's Black Sea port city of Odessa, killing 2 people and injuring 15 more, in addition to sparking fires and damaging infrastructure. Ukraine's Air Force said that Russia launched 5 ballistic missiles and 170 drones during the overnight attack.
Now, on the other hand, a Ukrainian drone strike in the Russian-occupied town of Oleshki in the Kherson region in southern Ukraine killed 7 people and injured over 20. A Moscow-installed official said Ukrainian armed forces launched a massive strike on a market with FPV drones against civilians.
Now, as the crossfire continues, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zilinski has hailed the minerals deal with the US, saying the reworked agreement is truly equal. Zilinski added that the deal is the first result of his Vatican meeting with Trump on the sidelines of the funeral of Pope Francis.
The agreement has changed significantly in the process of preparation. Now it is a truly equal agreement that creates an opportunity for quite significant investment in Ukraine. Quite significant. And in addition, for a significant modernization of production in Ukraine and, no less important, modernization of legal practices in our country. There is no debt in a deal, and a fund, a recovery fund, will be created that will invest in Ukraine.
The White House has also hailed the deal, calling it a first-of-its-kind economic partnership that both the US and Ukraine will greatly benefit from.
But State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce has said that while the minerals deal cements the US partnership with Ukraine, it's still up to the 2 parties involved in the conflict to figure out a ceasefire. Work out a ceasefire here. Washington has been signaling its frustration with the failure of Moscow and Kyiv to agree on terms and move faster towards peace.
Ukrainian officials also say that this version of the deal that was signed on Wednesday is much more beneficial for the country compared to the first draft that was introduced in March. For Ukraine also is very important to keep this support from the US, because Washington's aid was crucial in Ukraine's resistance against Russia for the last more than 3 years.
And at least 101 people have been killed in 2 days of sectarian clashes in Syria between pro-government forces and the Druze minority near Damascus.
Well, according to the Syrian War Monitor, the clash was erupted after the release of an alleged blasphemous audio clip attributed to a Druze cleric.
After 2 days of clashes, security forces have been deployed in Sana'a following an agreement with Druze elders. Earlier, 22 people had died in violent clashes in Sana'a, including 16 members of the government security forces.
Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has made a statement where he's warned that it would respond with significant force if Syria's new authority fail to protect the Druze minority.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Shah too urged the international community to protect Syria's Druze. Speaking at an event marking Israel's Independence Day, Shah called on the international community to fulfill its role in protecting the minorities in Syria.
Know what it is to be a minority. The Middle East is a tough region for minorities. I call on the international community to fulfill its role in protecting the minorities in Syria, especially the Druze, from the regime and its gangs of terror. And not to turn a blind eye to the tough events taking place there over the recent months.
Well, in the wake of the sectarian clashes, Israeli military was seen at a post along the Israeli-Syrian border in the occupied Golan Heights. The deployment comes a day after Israel carried out a strike in Syria against what it called extremists who attacked members of the Druze community. The Israeli military also evacuated 2 Syrian Druze who were apparently wounded during the sectarian violence.
The Druze religious sect is a minority group that began as a 10th century offshoot of Ismailism, a branch of Shiite Islam. Over 500,000 Druze worldwide live in Syria. Most of the other Druze live in Lebanon and Israel, including in the Golan Heights, which Israel captured from Syria in the 1967 Mideast War. Now, just ahead of the June 3rd presidential election, South Korea's fast-changing political landscape is keeping voters guessing amid a slew of legal challenges, resignations and emerging candidates.
Well, the country's main opposition party candidate Lee Jae-myung is caught in a legal crisis, with South Korea's apex court overturning his previous acquittal in an election violation law case. The court has ordered a fresh trial in which a conviction for Lee could result in a 5-year ban from contesting elections.
Meanwhile, uncertainty is looming on the other side of the political spectrum. Acting President Han Duck-soo resigned just after Supreme Court ruled against Democratic Party nominee Lee Jae-myung.
A short while ago, I tendered my resignation as Prime Minister and Acting President. 2 paths lay before me. One is to carry on in my current role. The other is to step down and take on a greater responsibility.
Now, with Han's resignation, one more name has been added in the list of acting president's power, who is now passed on to Education Minister Lee Joo-ho, who will serve as acting president.
That's not all. Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok also resigned just before National Assembly reported to a motion to impeach him. The impeachment motion, Choi is accused of delaying the appointment of the 9th Justice to the Constitutional Court during his time as acting president.
Well, former President Yoon's People Party is yet to nominate a presidential candidate. The dynamics of Conservative primaries will shift if Han also throws his hat in the race. Well, Conservative primaries are already in their final stages, with Kim Moon-so and Han Duck-hoon emerging as the frontrunners.
If Han Duck-soo enters the race, the Conservative Party will have to choose between him a late entry into the primaries or nominating him as a consensus candidate. Already trailing behind in the opinion polls, the Conservative vote risk getting divided further if Han goes alone.
Snap elections were triggered in South Korea after the Constitutional Court upheld Yoon's impeachment. Yoon is a bystander in this election, but the legal net is closing in on him. Apart from the charges of insurrection, Yoon has been indicted on an additional charge of abuse of power over his brief declaration of martial law in early December.
Now, all eyes are on the Vatican that will soon begin the process to elect the next pope.
Well, the countdown has begun to the conclave to choose the next pope of the Vatican. From the 7th of May, 133 candidates eligible to vote and under the age of 80 will enter the Sistine Chapel to cast their ballots in secret to choose the successor to Pope Francis. But as the cardinals gather behind the thick walls of the Vatican, speculation is raging as to what the next pope will wear.
For the first time in nearly half a century, no formal order has been placed for the new Pope's cassock. But despite the silence from the Vatican, Rome's papal tailors who traditionally stitch cassocks for the Pope have begun their preparations.
Lorenzo Gamarelli, sixth-generation representative of the Gamarelli tailor shop. The Vatican is also silent on why no order has been placed for cassocks. Reports, however, suggest that while there are enough unused robes on hand, late Pope Francis's commitment to simplicity and sustainability may be influencing the decision.
Now, robes got simpler under Pope Francis, who moved away from the elaborate gold brocade embroidered sash and red cape. But it is unclear if the next pontiff will retain his style or restore the traditional papal pomp. And a lawmaker has been shot dead on the busy streets of the Kenyan capital.
The incident took place on Wednesday night. An unknown assailant shot dead Parliament member Charles Ongondo Wuri and his car was stopped at a red light. The unidentified gunman fled the scene on a motorbike around 7:30 p.m. local time. Charles who represents the Kenya's western area of Kasipul. He attended a Parliament session earlier in the day.
Kenya's police officials say that the murder appears to be premeditated and targeted. According to reports, 2 gunmen are involved. The lawmaker's driver survived the shooting. Charles was shot at close range and pronounced dead upon being brought to the hospital.
We would want to register our deepest condolences to what has taken place. I want to confirm and inform the residents of the entire Homa Bay County and Kenya. Honorable Ongondo Were was with us in Parliament, as been stated, and he closely had a serious or close discussion with Honorable Ivo Barra, as I saw. I passed Honorable Ongondo Were around 7 in the night at Parliament exit as he was addressing 5 MPs, and he was the one whom the MPs were listening to.
Charles Were was a member of the opposition ODM party that is headed by Raila Odinga.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
But don't go anywhere. On the other side of world DNA, after Pakistan closed its airspace to Indian aircrafts, India has retaliated by banning all Pakistani registered aircraft, triggering an airspace war.
Also on the other side, a man facing murder charges in India's Mangaluru has been hacked to death. The incident took place on Thursday night. We will get you all the details of this on the other side.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers? Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines first.
And we hope, frankly, that Pakistan, to the extent that they're responsible, cooperates with India.
US Vice President J.D. Vance says Washington hopes that Pakistan would cooperate with India to hunt down Pakistan-based terrorists. Says he also hopes India's response to the recent terror attack in Kashmir does not lead to a broader regional conflict.
A man accused in a murder case hacked to death in India's Mangaluru. The brazen attack was caught on camera.
A Nepali girl student is found hanging in Bhubaneswar's KIIT hostel in India's Odisha state. This is the second such incident since February.
Strong winds and a dust storm followed by heavy rain hit Delhi and the national capital region. Flight operations were severely impacted.
Trump sacks Mike Waltz as national security advisor and nominates him for UN post. Secretary of State Marco Rubio temporarily replaces him.
Iran says a fourth round of talks between the United States and Iran due to take place in Rome on Saturday and has been postponed, and a new date will be set depending on the United States' approach. This, as Trump says, all purchases of Iranian oil or petrochemical products must stop.
I said 24. He said, yeah, 24, only 24. I said 24 out of the 59 are living, and they knew because they had just gotten out.
US President Donald Trump speaks to parents of US-Israeli hostages at a White House event. Says fewer than 24 hostages are alive.
Signaling a softening of Beijing's stance in the tit-for-tat tariff war, China says it is assessing whether to start trade negotiations in the United States.
The U.S. manufacturing sector sees a deeper slump in April as uncertainty surrounding President Trump's tariffs escalates. The Institute for Supply Management's manufacturing index drops to 48.7%, signaling contraction.
Mumbai Indians beat Rajasthan Royals by 100 runs to knock them out of playoff contention in the IPL. The five-time champions are now top of the table.
An airspace war has erupted following the pahalgam terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir.
This after Pakistan closed its airspace to Indian aircrafts. India retaliated by issuing a notice to airmen banning all Pakistani registered, operated or leased aircraft, including military, from using airspace between the 30th of April to the 23rd of May.
Well, the tit-for-tat move has revived memories of the 2019 post-Balakot standoff when Pakistan shut its skies for nearly 5 months, causing economic losses of $100 million.
Now, the airspace closure is expected to hit Pakistan hard. With Indian airspace now off limits, Pakistan International Airlines must reroute flights to Southeast Asia, such as to Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand, via Sri Lanka and China.
This detour adds nearly 3 hours of flight time, increasing fuel consumption, crew requirements and operational costs. Now, Pakistan also loses critical overflight revenue. Indian flights, including wide-body jets, generated over $120,000 in daily fees, money Pakistan is no longer earning. The ban comes at a time when Pakistan's economy is already under stress and its national carrier is recovering from a 4-year European ban lifted only in late 2024.
Indian carriers are also feeling the heat. Airlines are rerouting international flights to Europe, North America and the Gulf, impacting around 1,200 flights in April alone. These detours have increased flight durations by up to 90 minutes. Air India has projected an annual hit of $600 million if the ban continues. The Civil Aviation Ministry is now working with airlines to explore cost mitigation measures, including potential subsidies as airfare hikes from passengers become increasingly likely. And a Nepali student who was studying at the Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology in Odisha's Bhubaneswar has been found dead inside her hostel room.
According to the police, the body of the girl was found in a hanging position, suggesting that she committed suicide.
While the student's body has been sent to AIIMS for a post-mortem, a detailed investigation is currently underway. The girl was a first-year BTech computer science student at the KIIT. Now, if you recall, earlier in February, a Nepali student from the same university, Prakriti Lamsal, was found dead in her hostel room as well.
Leading to protests by Nepali students. The protesting students had alleged that a fellow student had harassed her and that the college had failed to act despite multiple complaints.
Nepal's ambassador to India, Shankar P. Sharma, has reacted to the incident. In a post on X, the ambassador wrote that he was deeply saddened by the student's death, adding that the Nepalese government was closely coordinating with the MEA, the Odisha government and the police. So this is the latest right now that we're getting from Odisha, that a Nepali student who was studying at the Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology has been found dead inside her hostel room. This from Odisha's Bhubaneswar, and this is the second such case that we are reporting. The student's body has been sent to AIIMS for a post-mortem and a detailed investigation is underway.
From what we know, the girl was a first-year BTech computer science student studying at KIIT And this is not the first case. As we've reported earlier in February, another student from the same university, whose name was Prakriti Lamsal, was found dead in her hostel room, which had led to protests by the Nepali students. Now, the protesting students had alleged that a fellow student had harassed her and that the college had failed to take any action despite multiple complaints being made to the authorities.
Nepal's ambassador to India, Shankar P. Sharma, has reacted to the incident, saying that he was deeply saddened by the death of the student, adding that the Nepalese government was closely coordinating with the MEA, the Odisha government and the police. A Nepali student was studying at the Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology has been found dead inside her hostel room. She was found hanging in her room, suggesting that she committed suicide.
Now, from what we know, the body has been sent to AIMS for a post-mortem. Meanwhile, a detailed investigation is currently underway. From what we know, the girl was a first-year BTech computer science student. And for more on this, our Suhas Shetty, a 30-year-old accused of murder, has been hacked to death in Karnataka's Mangaluru.
Now, he is the main accused in a murder in Suratkal in 2022 and has been brutally attacked and killed by a group of men. This incident took place on Thursday night when Shetty was travelling in a vehicle with 5 others.
The car was intercepted by a group of 5 to 6 assailants in a swift car and a pickup truck. The attackers reportedly dragged Shetty out and assaulted him with swords and other sharp weapons. He was rushed to a nearby hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. The attack was caught on video and was widely circulated on social media.
Shetty had 5 criminal cases registered against him, including 2 murder cases. As I mentioned earlier, he is the main accused in the murder of a 23-year-old Mohammad Fazil, who was killed in front of a shop in Suratkal in July 2022. Fazil was killed just 2 days after the murder of BJP worker Praveen Netaru, an incident that had triggered widespread outrage.
The Mangaluru City Police have confirmed Shetty's murder and a case has been registered. Multiple teams have been deployed to track down the assailants.
And in a significant gesture of spiritual diplomacy, India is preparing to send a sacred relic of the Buddha from Sarnath near Varanasi to Vietnam for exposition.
Marking its first such journey to the Southeast Asian country, the exposition of the holy relic is all set to be held in Vietnam under the gala celebrations of the United Nations Day of Vesak from May 2nd to 21st. The event is being organized by India's Ministry of Culture in collaboration with the International Buddhist Confederation, highlighting the deep cultural and spiritual connection shared between India and Vietnam. The 20-day exposition is expected to attract millions of devotees who will come to pay homage to the relic.
The relic arrived at the National Museum in New Delhi on the 30th of April from Varanasi. Protected within an enclosure, the relic will be opened for meditation and veneration by Buddhist followers, including diplomats from Buddhist nations.
This time when we are taking the relic to Vietnam, it's a very unique occasion because we have the United Nations Day of Vesak being celebrated in Ho Chi Minh City, where around 40,000 people from across the world, from 100 countries, will be converging. A lot of academicians, a lot of Buddhist monks, a lot of practicing Buddhists. and around that time we are taking the holy relic from India.
On May 1st, the relic will be flown to Ho Chi Minh City aboard an Indian Air Force aircraft, which will be escorted by senior monks and led by Union Minister Kiren Rijiju. A high-level IBC delegation will accompany the relic and participate in Vesak celebrations.
As the celebrations go on, the holy relics will land in that country. So I think it will be a classic case of reminding the people of Vietnam and India about their strong historical bonds, the heritage-based bonds.
In addition, the IBC will host 3 exhibitions featuring Jataka tales, Buddhist sculptures and comparative studies of Indian Vietnamese artifacts. India has sent sacred Buddha relics abroad for exposition on several occasions, primarily to strengthen cultural ties and with the Buddhist majority countries, which includes Thailand in 2024 and then Mongolia in 2022.
A 3-day wave of political rallies has begun in Bangladesh. Rival groups are flooding Dhaka.
This is the country awaits fresh elections after former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was deposed last year. Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, now 84, is heading the interim government. He took charge after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted last August.
Yunus says elections will be held by December this year or by mid-2026 at the latest. The BNP, widely seen as a front-runner, is holding a massive May Day rally. The Jamaat-e-Ismaili and the Jatiya party are also taking to the streets. For the Jatiya, this is the first outdoor event since their office was vandalized in October, allegedly for backing Hasina.
Now on Friday, the National Citizens Party, formed by student leaders of last year's protest, will stage a rally. Its leader, Nahid Islam, initially joined the Yunus cabinet, then quit to form the NCP. The party is expecting a crowd of up to 30,000 people.
On Saturday, the Hifazat-e-Islam is holding a grand rally to demand scrapping of reforms proposed by the Women's Commission. The group says it will continue to protest regardless of who leads the government.
Bangladesh last held elections in January 2024. Yunus says the caretaker government will deliver democratic reforms before taking the country to the polls. Elections could be held early or later depending on political consensus. And Bitcoin surged past gold and tech stocks in April, sparking debate over its role as a refuge from market turmoil.
After historic swings in April, an age-old market maxim looms over the bounce in US stocks. Sell in May and go away. One of the best-known market trends, the sell in May effect, is backed by decades of historical performance. We dive into this trend and the changing narrative about cryptos in this next report. Take a look.
Bitcoin's more than 15% increase in April was driven by investors seeking protection from escalating policy risks and institutional instability. May looks to be another rollercoaster month, with cryptos expected to continue their outperformance, similar to last month. In April, Bitcoin surged past gold and tech stocks alike. Gains in Bitcoin, as digital gold rekindled the debate over whether the largest crypto token serves as a refuge from geopolitical and economic turmoil, such as the strife triggered by sweeping US tariffs. The other go-to refuge in periods of uncertainty, gold, rallied to a record high of $3,500 an ounce before paring some gains to return 6.1% in April. Bitcoin posted over 15% increase since April 1st. Advocates say the OG token acted as an alternative hedge amid growing concerns over US fiscal policy and institutional stability. After Trump took office and started his economic broadsides, the initial reaction to the tariffs saw Bitcoin move lower alongside risk assets, mirroring sharp declines in US stocks. But the crypto soon diverged, rallying sharply as long-dated treasury yields climbed and investors sought protection from escalating policy risks. Rising concerns about the independence of the Federal Reserve and the credibility of US economic policy have led investors to seek refuge in the Swiss franc, euro, gold, and now, finally, Bitcoin. What stands out more is Bitcoin's unusually low beta during recent market stress, suggesting investors are beginning to view it as a more mature, long-term asset. In April, investors poured about $2.9 billion into US-listed Bitcoin spot exchange-traded funds, ETFs. That marks a sharp reversal from March and February when the funds saw sharp net outflows. Bitcoin's defensive properties are becoming increasingly relevant. This comes as investors confront a range of risks, from private sector shocks like the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in 2023 to government sector threats such as political interference in the Fed. In the month of extreme fluctuations in US equity markets, stocks associated with cryptocurrency experienced a significant rise, propelled by the surge in Bitcoin's value. Stocks linked to digital assets tend to be more volatile than the tokens themselves, meaning that value increases are often amplified when prices go up. However, April showed a different side. That trend is set to continue into May, as recession bets are back on the table after the US economy contracted at the start of 2025. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
Now let's shift our focus to the world of sports, where Manchester United have taken a huge step towards the Europa League final. The Red Devils delivered their best performance of the Ruben Amorim era to beat Athletic Club 3-0 in the away leg of their semi-final.
Now, United are enduring